So, a very warm welcome to Mr. Aditya KV. Thank you for joining us. Uh, we are very delighted to have you. And let's start with this interview. So, firstly, our first question is that you are doing an excellent job and we know about you. So, can you please tell us about you and your organization so that everyone who will be listening to us can know about
Sure. Thank you,
you?
Shrinkul and Abhay for inviting me. So I work for an organization called Moya Sports Foundation, which is essentially leveraging the power of sports and play-based education to build life skills, 21st century skills in children with and without disabilities. So our idea is to create an inclusive society, inclusive education, inclusive classrooms, using the power of play and sports. So what we do is we curate and implement sports and play-based education programs in partnership with special schools, inclusive schools, wherein we give, because one of the things that we observed is children with disabilities often get left out in the whole education system or even in the basic rights. And even a right to play is a very important aspect, especially for a child. Like if I ask any both of you, like what is one thing which you remember the most from your childhood, I feel like it will be great if you can just answer that, like Shrinkal or Abhay, like what do you remember the most from your childhood?
The thing.
Abhay,
Abhay,
uh,
your voice is breaking.
your voice is breaking.
Just a second, sir. Is it fine now?
Better.
So I was saying the easiness of doing things. Like we were not forced to do things.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what are the moments that you remember from your childhood?
Playing with friends.
Exactly, playing without freely without any uh, fuss in the head. So that was very convenient for us.
Exactly. Exactly right. So playing is such an important aspect of anyone's childhood. And unfortunately for a child with disability, this is the very basic which does not get happen. Because if you would have seen any playground or like children outside playing, there we hardly see any children with disabilities. But that does not mean that they are not there in the society, right? And this is exactly what we are trying to do at Moya, where we are trying to create that opportunity, that equal opportunity for all children, wherein they can have that access, where they have that opportunity for to play, not just like just as recreationally, but also in the process they build their life skills. Because I'm sure you are aware that how important sports can be in building the life skills, right? And there are enough examples around us. And one of the things that what we are trying to do is this exact same thing of building that opportunities of like building their life skills through sports. So in a nutshell, this is what we are trying to do and what we are doing at Omoya Sports.
That was really great to hear, sir. Could you tell us more about how you got this idea? Because every entrepreneur has a story related to the idea. So how do you got to that idea? Like what led to you going for Moya Sports?
Sure. So I think like every like as you mentioned that there is a story connected with everyone, and there is a story connected with mine also. And that, like I think there are a couple of stories which are connected with, like which led me to start something like this. One of the thing is like one of the stories is absolutely very personal, wherein uh, like like sports has been something which I've always been doing, and I feel like I am today what I am because of the time that I've spent because of sports. So while playing football, I actually had a injury due to which I was bedridden for a very long time, and that was a time where like as after the rehab, I actually had to use a wheelchair, and then had to I was using crutches to move around, like so that I can get back to my like to the form of walking. And during that time when I was on wheelchair, I really want, and basketball was another game which I wanted to play, and I wanted to get back because it was such a frustrating time, and I wanted to play, but there was nothing which I could do. And that led me to kind of like start just a basic research about opportunities for people with disabilities to play. And I found that it absolutely, like, there are massive gaps and there is no opportunities, as I was saying earlier. And beyond that, like more than that, I think one of the things which I realized is, like, during that time when I was on a wheelchair, I realized that how inaccessible everything around us is. Like our communities, the people mindset, the infrastructure, as in, like, when after the operation, when I had come home, like four of my friends and my father had to lift me up to my house in a building, because there was, like, that time there were no lifts as commonly as now they are. And not every house is right now having a lift, even right now. So those are a couple of things, like lack of ramps, there's no access, right? And that became a big challenge, and that was the time which I kind of like realized about the lack of accessibility and the challenges that people with disabilities face on a daily basis. And while this thought was seeded because of this moment, but one of the things, like one of the moments which made me really kind of like reiterated the importance of this need for this, is when I was like as a like post my corporate, when I was working, I left that to join a inclusion fellowship called Teach for India. So as a Teach for India fellow, I was teaching in a classroom of 60 children, and I had 4 or 5 children with special needs in my class. And that was the time where I saw how it, like, the challenges, like, were the same, but like what they were facing. And more than that, like, they had additional challenges, such as, like, the other kids picked on them. They had, like, everyone used to tease them and drag them. And it kind of like affected their social, emotional, and academically, every way. And in order to channel the energy of all the children and to make these kids as a part of a program, I started a football camp. Like, I started a football program in the school. And that was the first time when children were actually playing football. Like, imagine, like, a 12-year-old never had that opportunity to play, and these kids started playing. And it was such a great opportunity, it was such a great moment, that actually one of the kids with special needs started playing so well that he became part of the school team. And that was the thing that kind of like changed the mindset of not just of the parents, but the teachers, more importantly. um, one second, hold on, please. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no issues.
Sorry, I'm back. Sorry. So I think, like, it changed the mindset of the people. It changed the mindset of the teachers when they started saying कि sir, ये पढ़ाई तो कर नहीं सकता है, पढ़ाई में तो ये अच्छा नहीं है, कम से कम इसको आप खेलकूद में आगे करो. So that kind of like changed the narrative of a child, and it started building a confidence for a child. And that reiterated the importance of sports that can play in a child's holistic development. And I think like post that, it just made me more confident about the need for such a program. And then it kind of like reiterated at various stages of my life, and then I was like, since there are no opportunities, I think, so I jumped into it and I started Umoya in 2018.
That was a very inspiring answer. And every organization and every human being have their own obstacles during their journey. You must have a fair bit of yours as well. So can you please throw some light on it?
Sure. So, see, absolutely. Like, I think, as everyone, that there is a challenges in absolutely in starting of something, and more so like a social entrepreneurship. And one of the major challenges, obviously, was the mindset, the people mindset, the parents mindset, the children mindset itself. Like, because a lot of times the parents, the teachers, they were like, they did not have a understanding that how a child with disability can play. it could be because of care, it could be because of safety, it could be because of anything. But then, like, it became a huge task for us to educate the schools, educate the parents in explaining the benefits of sports, in explaining why it is important and how it can be possible. So I think that was the initial challenges that we absolutely faced. And the other is to even reach out to them, like, as in, because like, now it is not that easy to find people with disabilities, even if, like, it is because of either the parental kind of a thing or because of various challenges. So it became like, the mindset continued to be a challenge. While having said that, right now some of our major champions for the program are also some parents, like, where, like, the parents and the teachers, where they understand the value of it and they encourage their children to play. So you have both the sets of mindset of the people, right? So one is that. The other was the challenge of finding educators, because, like, one is the problem of, like what we were able to solve through curriculum, like having, like, what we call as a 3C challenge or a 3C approach. So first was the for the culture, which I told you about. Like, there is no lack of inclusion mindset as a big problem. Then the second problem is the access of a coach or an educator. Like, in our country, there are hardly any coaches have who have the skill sets of teaching sports for a child with disabilities. In Western countries, we have a proper physical education unit called adapted physical education, where the teachers are trained to work with a child with disability in sports. Like, so when we started out, we were able to convince a lot of schools, and a lot of schools partnered with us. But the challenge became in finding the finding the coaches. So it became a huge additional resource and a training cost for us as an organization to take in people, to train them for a long time, to give them that understanding, and then kind of like that, putting them in the schools. So I think that, and a lot of, not all physical educators or sports coaches are also interested to work or a coach children with disabilities. So that it became an additional challenge. Then the third, which is the most important, is the curriculum. So, like, in our country, it is very difficult. Like, the whole education system, especially the inclusive education system, is quite broken. And I think we had to, because the way our program is very niche, it kind of like fits in between education, sports, and disability. So there are a lot of cross curricular kind of modules that we had to build, and there was nothing available, at least in the Indian landscape, in the Indian education landscape. So we actually had to build everything from scratch. Obviously, there are a lot of international partnerships that we have, international experts who are on, excuse me, who support us, and who helped us in our journey. So so this is essentially like a 3C approach that we use. But one of the things which I definitely will say is, like, the curriculum and the coach can still be there, but the culture, like, is a big aspect. I think that India will take a long, like, it is a huge journey for us to make India inclusive and to build that mindset in people about inclusion. And still, people with disabilities are treated as pity, like charity, or as pity cases. It takes time, and it takes real efforts for people to kind of also show and highlight their challenges, like their potential and their strength. So I think overall, this is how I would, like, these are the, like, how I will put the challenges as such, that what we face and what we continue to.
That was very intriguing, sir. Could you give what's your organization's future plans? Like, where are you guys thinking of heading to?
So um, I think we have a three-pronged approach. One is on the same aspects of curriculum, coach, and culture. So our main idea from the culture, curriculum perspective, is actually to create like a program which, because right now in the education space, inclusive education and the national education policy, which has been in 2020, which came out, is talks a lot about inclusive classrooms and peer-led learning. So we want to actually get integrated within the education system, within these programs, so that so that inclusion can be a big aspect, and play and sports are one of the like a tools that every child loves to play and live, every child loves to do. So it can be easily integrated using these tools of play and sports, so that a child like to create that culture in a classroom, which essentially helps in create like conducive environment for a child with or without disability to learn. So one is like building that curriculum, like we are like integrating our curriculum within that framework. Second is essentially to idea is to train coaches, train parents, train caregivers in becoming a ambassador for sports and play, and how they themselves can then take up such programs or use it in their work, in their day-to-day life, and into day-to-day teaching. So creating that kind of a resources of so many teachers, adapted sports mentors as we call, so that like essentially there are more children and that have opportunities to kind of like get trained and get can play. Then third is essentially again on the culture bit is like we are trying to build something like a adapted sports club, or a like a adapted sports club, inclusive sports club, which is like which is like a sports club for child with and without for children with and without disability to come and play together, whether it is for recreational purposes or for like training to build their skills of sports. So I think our like our strategy is also building on working on these 3C model as we call it.
Thank you for your answers. So, entrepreneurship is definitely not easy. You have to face a lot of challenges. You have to go through a lot. So, how have your priorities have changed since the start to the now, as your organization has evolved more at a personal level? You can throw some light on it.
Sure. So as I said, like I think itself is like a long and a lonely journey sometimes, and social entrepreneurship is sometimes even more harder. And one of the things absolutely is I think raising funds and getting that support is continues to be one of the challenges as such for our organization, because we are not a large scale organization. So fundraising continues to be a challenge. And I think this is something which kind of also uh, fuels our work, and also helps us to kind of like scale the work that we are trying to do. So fundraising is a big challenge that we are that as an organization that we are trying to focus on this year, and as a thing. Like earlier, I think the challenges were more on the programmatic level and everything, but now it is like the problems of scale. Like how do we scale the programs with maintaining the same quality of work that we are trying to do, and how do we leverage technology in that bit? So because of 2020, like because of recent COVID, obviously everything became digital. So we were able to create a digital pivot and create a digitize our programs. So so now our focus is to understand how we can scale these programs across pan India, and with the same maintaining the same quality and monitoring and evaluation and all those aspects. So yeah, so I think this is how probably I will say that our current focus is for this year, which is essentially on just to summarize, is on fundraising, which will help us scale, and the third is to basically like scaling of the program. So scaling and fundraising.
That's it, sir. Uh, could you give, it's the last question. What advice would you give us, like, for going ahead in our careers?
So I think like one of the advice which I'll give is probably that it is it is very important to stay curious. I think everyone talks about passion. I think passion is short lived, but curiosity is something which is for longer. And I think that is more important than just passion, because like sometimes motivation can sometimes die down easily because of anything. It could be because of a bad experience, it could be because of a bad moment and everything. But I think curiosity is something which will fuel your passion, which will fuel your motivation and your inspiration. And I think that is something which I will say, to understand what are you most curious about, or what do you love the most about, which will help you kind of like drive towards like the areas of work which will really interest you, wherein you can pick up. So yeah, so I think that is one thing which I will just say.
Thank you for your advice. We'll surely try to implement that in our lives, especially when it comes from someone from you who has such a great caliber. Uh, Thank you for your again a very good conversation with you about various challenges you faced in about your organization. It was very delightful conversation with you. We would look forward to having you once again if we are able to. It was a great conversation. Thank you once again, Mr. Adit KV.
Thank you, Shinkal, and thank you, Abhay.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.